Okay, sim builders, I have received feedback on a couple of different formats I was trying in the videos on how to go about doing these build videos. These build videos this is a significant portion of the mission, is like using the stats and the information that we have, the best information we have, to try and build a craft that's available to do the mission ahead of us. And honestly, that's the interesting part of engineering, of anything, engineering something physical, also engineering software, is like that the build portion, design portion from the mission parameters. However, I've noticed in some of my latest videos, some of my latest builds, that I will talk a little bit, think, and then do a lot of thinking, which is just silent, dead airspace. And I understand that can be a little bit hard to watch and sit through and really enjoy as far as content is concerned. I briefly tried an experiment on doing like a time lapse and talking over the time lapse. I got feedback from one of my viewers saying that it was, it was cool and all. It was kind of a cool idea, but it didn't really help them understand. And I have some viewers that are doing some play-alongs. So we're going to try a new format for this. Once again, getting experimental. This format is going to be me doing my best to talk through what I'm doing, talk through what I'm thinking. I may then like tell you what I plan to do that thing, so that can be time accelerated footage, and then go back and explain what's coming up. So with that format in mind, our mission phase is a satellite. The satellite needs to meet the following goals. It needs to be self-sufficient as far as power is concerned. It needs to generate a lot of power, or have a lot of solar power available in order to drive engines and other things, the xenon engines, which we're going to use for its maneuvering. It needs a lot of solar area just to be able to do that. I would like it to either itself be able to dip into the atmosphere and back out, or to be bringing with it a little sub-probe that we can deorbit and have transmit back information. I think that could be interesting, actually. That could be a fun mission. I'm going to go for that. We're going to have 2 probes. One, mothership probe, I guess you could say, and then a small one that we're just going to throw off and let it fall into Jool's atmosphere to hopefully send back that data for the optional mission. The core mission is establishing a communitron type satellite around Jool for 5,000 science. It's crazy. And there's a lot of other science we'll be able to transmit back along the way. So let's build the if I have to have a huge communication device, I'm going to do that. This is going to be a really interesting problem. Well, let's build the mothership core and see what options we have. We're not using methalox, methane, or mono-P. It's just going to be xenon. A little small xenon thing like this. A small, the only xenon engine we have. And check out these stats. 39,000 delta V, according to this. Now, this, of course, hinges on whether or not we can generate enough power, which currently we can't. So, we need to make some structures. It's kind of too big, but it's also kind of cool. Like if we do something like this massive probe core structure, right? And then go through and add some power. Power. Lots of it. We can attach at the end of the xenon engine here a little small battery just so it looks nice. Or we could say, screw you and your small batteries. Attach a couple of big boys right there. And then for solar arrays, if we're going to dip into the atmosphere, So the reason I'm talking about dipping into the atmosphere is because for communications, wherever that is, here we go. We need something like this or this. Shift for more. 30. Yeah, so these are both. This is 36 gigameters. This is 86 gigameters. So according to our mission brief, let me double. Do we have mission stuff in here? According to our mission brief, this one should be sufficient for transmitting back to Kerbal, right? Kerbin. And if that's the case, I only really need one of them. We put that there. That can transmit back to Kerbin. This also has 36 gigameters. I'm gonna save this workspace. Call it the Jool of the Nile. Jool Satellites workspace. Let's take another look at mission briefing to see what they're talking about here. Oh, it needs 86 gigameters. Okay. Okay. 36 is good for Duna. Probably, sometimes. But apparently we need 86. So that means this chonker is coming along with us. If we put it there, we could potentially wrap our probe core in such a way that that is affecting center of mass. Blah. You know what? I know how to fix that though. Uh-huh. Like so. 18,000 delta V is what we're looking at here. Our trip planner, one way to Jool, please. Okay. So, for this build, I'm making sure that this particular mission phase is going to handle all the Jool pieces. This will be post-Kerbin exit. I'm not going to have this. This is going to be such low thrust that planning an exit maneuver out of Kerbin is going to take forever, given its 0.01 thrust-to-weight ratio. However, once we are in deep space, planning a Jool intercept, entry and exit, potentially some aero braking, can certainly be done with what we've got. We're not landing on the surface. We're not worrying about that. But like 18,000 delta V is plenty for this probe core to do its work. That is as of right now, though we haven't packed on the other weights. So we already talked about electrical. We need some serious, gigantic solar capability packed onto this thing. So that means something here, and we'll go ahead and extend them. What if I rotate that probe core one like that and start packing these on here, maybe here, and then where every one of these big trusses is. The idea is that all of these sails, all of these solar panels might like turn sideways and collect radiation from Kerbal. what if we do something like this? So hopefully this is going to be 8 solar panels that can all gather sunlight while this ship does its primary burns. Again, we're only doing those missions outside of Kerbin's sphere of influence. Now, we need to worry about communication, and that's going to be one of these guys. Oh, we already did those. We did them right here. Okay. So this Xenon Mothership should be able to get to Jool and lots of other destinations potentially on its own. We'll need some science packed along with this, of course. So we have access to our little sniffer and our science junior. Rotate that around like so, and our science payload is on board. We've got science, we've got power, we've got xenon and an engine. Like if we put on 2.8 tons of xenon, our thrust to weight ratio is already so low. And it's going to be dependent on our solar power's ability to generate power to really use. And just because I like being picky about these things, we're going to go ahead and turn off snap and slide this in until it at least looks like it's connected to the frame. That one's fine. This one. And same thing with these communitrons. They look all right. Big vessel, or big probe body. Now we want to bring us along a little guy. A little guy. So another command thing. Probe core. Stay put, Nick's fine. Maybe even a hex to go on top here. Communication antenna needs to be it again. The only antenna that we have that meets the mission criteria is this one, it looks like. What button do I push to get this thing to turn where I want? There we go. Bingo. Snap on there. Now here's a question I don't know the answer to. Do I need this big thing? Or can I just bring on a little, a little something to transmit, like have it communicate to here during its descent? We're going to try that. We're going to find out if this would be sufficient. And how about... So the main thing of this is that it's going to bring back an atmospheric study, which means that it needs to have a fair bit of battery packed onto it. And for utility, we'll just, we'll put on a nice little parachute and have this thing descend gracefully into Jool. So, thermal? We do have an extra small heat shield. Extra small heat shield, parachute. That's all this thing is. This will do the maneuvering of well, no, it might not have enough thrust to. A little extra small fuel tank. Sorry. That. You know what? I'm not worried about thermals. That's going to just be too much weight. We're going to throw just the tiniest engine we can find. This guy. Weigh plenty. Is that not Methalox fuel? Kerbal vacuum. This isn't giving me any readout as far as what the delta V is. Curious if I reload it, if it'll tell me anything. New workspace? All right, so this is the probe body entering Jool's atmosphere. This stores the most electrical charge, fuel tanks, engines, little tiny guy. There we go. What's your trip planner say? All we need is enough delta V in this thing for it to slow itself down. That's 15 whatever delta V. What happens if we use the bigger engine? Oh, that's way worse. And how much Methalox fuel is that? 0.85 tons, so nothing. A different way to do this mission would be, as we're coming in into Jool's sphere of influence, we are very, very far away during our pre-sphere of influence maneuver. We can use the xenon to push our orbit into Jool's atmosphere. And at that point, just have this thing with a big old battery crash through the atmosphere. That means thermal, maybe. Where is my... Gosh, I'm having a hard time. Okay. Half a ton of ablator versus... I'm sorry, 1/20th of a ton of ablator. What about these things? How much do they weigh? 0.8 each. Okay, I think I'm going to go with the ablator approach and just have this plunge into Jool's atmosphere. But since it's an atmospheric plunger, we don't need a big heavy probe. We can use the lightest probe body we can find. Like so. The lightest probe body we can find. It's got a battery, right? Yep, okay. Utility. And give it an extra small parachute. And it's going to need the atmospheric science. The atmospheric little sniffer. Barely enough room for it on this craft. And that thing's just going to burn up an entry anyway. How about, do you have a little tiny structure we can use? These beams are kind of big. Yeah, something like that ought to be all right. Extra small cube hub. Rotate this like so. Plop that on there. And hopefully that'll work. Communications. Just stick an antenna off the other side. I do not expect these solar panels to actually survive re-entry. But we'll tuck a couple in there. Like so. So this little guy is going to be dropped off. Basically, on a atmospheric crash course. Hopefully, it can relay its data to the other satellite that can push it, that can send it back as it plunges into the atmosphere. Now, we're going to go ahead and open this one and merge these workspaces. I do love the merge tool. Brilliant. I'm going to re-anchor on the battery because it's just too small. Okay, now all we need to do is attach this as a stage, right, to the mothership. So, good old coupling. Good old extra small coupling action. And do we have any handy adapters? Small to extra small. It just makes it look nicer. Brilliant. Now we check our staging. This is coupling later. The parachute is its own phase. And that will also go later after the decoupling, right? Xenon engine phase. Well, Sim Gamers, here is our primary mission target. It's only got 12,000 Delta V. I say only. Realistically, we're going to use 1400 1434 43, 44, maybe 4,500 delta V. So less than half of what this has to establish an intercept and low orbit. And that is without any aero braking. Now I might go ahead and grab... Do I want to attempt an aero braking with this? Not really. I'm going to fly this safe. So I'll go ahead and retract all these. Notably, once these extend, they cannot be retracted. So this is the payload. I'm going to wrap this in a medium payload shell. Up to there. Close it in. Maybe a little bit better. It didn't like... Oh, it's because these gigantic satellites are sticking out here. I forgot to account for those. What are you doing, game? Can we do that? Oh, look at that. Nice little bullet. Okay. Now we're going to put this into orbit. So we've got this and decoupling figured out. Now we just need the launch vehicle. And this launch vehicle needs to be able to provide, looks like 4,500 delta V at least. That's Kerbal low orbit and Kerbal entry and exit. I want this whole thing. I don't want the satellite's engine to have to activate until it's clear of Kerbal's sphere of influence. So that's the mission parameter we're working under here. Do we have any large tanks yet? No. So that sounds like a job for something like a poodle. But I don't even think we need to go that far. Let's see here. Fuel tanks. So little medium engines. I'm curious to know what the thrust to weight situation on this would be. 0.64. Whereas if I go to this poodle really is the best one. Given the size of this rocket, I don't think we're even going to need to worry about multiple stages, or very much. So if I just throw one of these on here with a skipper, we are already clocking in at 4,201 delta V. Because of the diminishing returns of adding fuel, doubling your fuel does not necessarily double your delta V. It adds a lot, but it doesn't double it. What did I say our goal was? 4,500. That's 51. But that's in Kerbal vacuum. That's not in Kerbal atmosphere. 4,500 in atmosphere. And, hang on. Oh, thruster rate's only 0.67. Okay. That's where we're going to run into issues. 0.67 thrust to weight. Do we go wide with asparagus staging? One of Kerbal space program's hidden secrets? And we have some fun new couplers that we can use. That are not only couplers, but also aerodynamic surfaces. A little small tank, a little bit of reliant action because it's going to be, this stage will be in the sustainer stage section. Need more fuel tank. Or we can just go traditional with some boosters. If I'm using boosters, I probably don't need as much up there. Coupling. Rotate these around. Gotta remember myself to keep on commentate everything. Boosters, boosters, boosters. Okay, that gives us not quite enough delta V overall, so we do need the bigger medium tank. What's that give us total? Put that down there, subtract that, and see we have 46. Oops. We have 600 delta V in this first stage, which is an atmospheric stage. Now 500 delta V. And then an additional 4,800 here, assuming we are able to get into Kerbal vacuum, if not atmosphere. But mainly, I'm looking at the thrust to weight ratio. It's still too low. All right, mainsail, you're the engine for me. Or hang on, we have a new one. We have a. So the skipper provides 600 thrust vacuum. This is 850 thrust vacuum. How does that work? 0.9? 1.34? We could do something cool. I've seen like Mount Lown and others do this kind of thing where they toss an engine mount down and have multiples of these engines. Like that, maybe. That gives us a 2.07 thrust to weight ratio to begin with. But only approximately 3,000 delta V. Whereas this gives us 1.34. That's still a little low, but that's easily solved by changing this to maybe a 3-ply. 1.5. There we go. Or the other option is just to use a bigger booster. So I was using this small one. I can use the kickback. Which gives us in the neighborhood of 5,000 delta V overall. And 1.55 thrust weight ratio. All right. Our launcher stage is coming together. Now, we'll just put on some stabilizer action here. and cap off these boosters. We could use the new one. So I find the right button to rotate it correctly. To kind of tuck that end underneath the thing there. Okay. Final check of our staging. And I'm going to go ahead and put my assembly anchor right there. Just to make this rocket a lot easier to grab and move around. Okay. Final checks. 5,000 delta V. 1.54 thrust to weight ratio, which is a nice efficient thrust to weight ratio for takeoff. 1.22 once our boosters are gone. Shrouds deployed. Satellite deployed. Xenon engine activated. Then we're in the Xenon engine stage. And it isn't telling me what this thing's delta V is. So we might need to sort of take a look here. Well, it's unfortunate that our delta V numbers for this satellite aren't showing up. But it was like 18,000, right? Let me double check my staging, make sure I've got everything staged correctly. Shroud, that, then the engine. This goes later, and parachute. Structures, we'll go ahead and clamp this down. Let's go through our checklist, final checklist of builds. We've got command and control for both of these. The atmospheric probe that's being dropped and the main body. We've got all fuels and engines figured out. I don't need any structures or anything else that I can see. Our coupling stages are figured out. Right, we've got our coupling going on here and up here. Payload done. Aerodynamics is fine. We have no ground need. We've got a heat shield on this one, on the descender and the impactor. Plenty of electrical deployed throughout. So this will allow us to look inside the shroud here a little bit. Communication. We're not sure if this communication is going to work from Jool, like if this can act as a relay. Hopefully it can. We've got our atmospheric science and our little sniffer science, and then a parachute up top. That should work as our Jool mission. This is the Jool of the Nile. And we'll put it in the Jool satellite workspace. So you know the routine. Card in the upper right hand corner to get back to the episode where we launch this thing and hopefully make it all the way to Jool, basically using the techniques and stuff that we've already learned from our other Kerbal Space Program missions. Until then, I'm Sim Gamer, and this is Kerbal Space Program 2 for science!